talking about trainers, the people who look after all these syndicates, of course, really the trainers' wives, their partners, and the people sort of who don't get the glory. And so many trainers are men. Obviously, there are women trainers as well, of course there are. But it is the women who do the work behind the scenes. What would you do to sort of boost up lady trainers' wives?
I think that,
or lady trainers or their wives?
No, I think lady trainers' wives, I think they're absolutely wonderful. I know three: Deirdre Johnson, Mark Johnson's wife, Mary Morrison, who's Hughie Morrison's wife, and Yvette Dixon, who is Paul Dixon, but he's also Scott Dixon's mother. And they are so wonderful. I mean, they work in the yard, they look after, they have lovely food for the owners, and they stay up all night waiting for the foals to be born. And they're mucking out and feeding 50 horses first thing in the morning. And then suddenly they'll go into the house and metamorphose into raging beauties. And they're quite extraordinary. I mean, you see them at the races. And so I'd like to have the most glamorous trainer of the year award. We'll turn his wife of the year award, yes.
So would it be done at a race meeting or an overall scores take?
You'd pick them out, wouldn't you?
Well, would you make me a judge?
Yes, lovely. We'll do it together. But I think that'd be sweet, because I don't think that. I mean, it's like stable lasses. I don't think a stable. I mean, it's much better. The stable staff are much better, much more recognised now, aren't they? Which is wonderful. But I still think.
Well, the best turned out prices. I always think it's almost an insult when you put on a sponsor puts on a £50,000, £100,000 race and gives £100 to the best turned out horse. Yeah. It goes back to the old days of guinea for the groom, and I think it's almost an insult when you put such a small amount. Yeah. I would say to sponsors, don't take more money, don't spend more money, just put a little bit back and redistribute it into the stable pools.
I think so. But I mean, they're so sweet talking about their horses, and they know their horses better than anybody, don't they? Those little girls. So I think, and little boys and things like that. So I think they should be honoured too. Keen on that. Under horse and under human.
So looking after the stable staff, looking after trainers, partners, and all that kind of.
And the seagull. That's always. I like to look after the seagull. I think they ought to have best seagull, don't you?
Best seagull. What are you talking about? If it drops on you, you wouldn't say that.
No, but every time you go to the races, there's always some seagull whizzing around, being a nuisance.
So who's going to be? What on earth that's going to go in your next novel? I cannot imagine. But you were talking earlier about bringing younger racegoers in. Up at the other end of the scale, what about pensioners? What will you do for pensioners who've given, very many of them, often a lot of money through their lives to racing?
They have.
Why don't we try and get more pensioners to race courses?
Yeah, well, absolutely same thing. I mean, it's pensioners for everybody. I mean, if pensioners would like it, because they're sort of free in the afternoon, aren't they?
And young people, free to, but it's easy for us to say, but racecourses are businesses. I know. And to give away their product free to pensioners and to younger racegoers is
just not only just once or twice a year, just as a treat. Once people are hooked, they'll be hooked, won't they? Get them in there.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
But I would like more to be done for the pensioners especially, and for the younger people, the students. But then it's easy to say, I'm not running a business as they are, and that is the problem. You're asking people in the commercial enterprises to exempt certain people from fees.
But only just for once or twice a year to get them.
I don't think it would work.
I
don't think it would work. And you could argue, say the all-weather meetings you were complaining.
Worked in Ireland with the Bastia one.
Yes, it did. They came, yes. But of course, when it's free, anybody would come. So wouldn't it, if you did it more often, more would come and more would be enveloped in the racing family.
And then you'd build up the black caviars and those horses like that, and more about the horses, so people would come to see the horses like they did in the show jumping.
Hannah, you're queen for the day. What do you mean building up horses?
Well, I just think, I like to know all about horses. I like to know they like carrots for breakfast and things like that. That wonderful horse the other day, William Mullins, bit him on the bum. Do you remember? I like those kind of stories. And I think you always say, oh, he's very well. But you want to know more about the horse's character. And Molly's Garden. And I love the parades of the horses.
Molly's Garden, the great old grey chaser, wasn't he?
Wonderful. And the best thing, when they thought he was dying, and they got a text at the yard saying, Molly's Garden, all Ireland is praying for you. And they said it was such a lift that the horse got a bit better after that. But they do.
You're saying he knows what's coming in on.
Well, he does.
You are a romantic.
No, I'm not. But
really
what I mean is, I just think that horses, people love horses, and if they knew about more the characters of horses, I mean, look how Black Caviar brought in all the people. Look how Zenyatta brought in all the people.
Racing needs stars like Black Caviar, Zenyatta. We've had Frankel. We've now got Sprinter Sacre.
Yeah, brilliant, gorgeous horse.
Extraordinary.
Denman.
Yeah, we've had so many in a short period of time.
I know.
Has racing capitalised on it? We've now got Great British Racing, Waltz Racing for Change, and they've had such gorgeous animals and such high-profile horses to build up the image of racing. Have they done enough? Is there more that could be done in your view?
I think there's more. I mean, Animal Kingdom. I mean, what a beautiful horse. And I just think, you know, the horses, when you knew a bit about its character and you interviewed the groom and whatever, just build up more about the horse. And back to the show jumping thing, that we used to know about all these famous horses, every single thing about them, what colour they're, everything.
Well, those are the days of Pat Smythe and when we were winning Olympic medals at show jumping. Well, we still are Princess Anne, of course. Do you think the popularity of racing, it has been so challenged now that it wasn't in the old days? That the challenge now from football especially, which is absolutely overwhelming, and other sports, television sports coming in, to see a race meeting in the old days, or to see a soccer match in the old days, it's very rarely on the television. Now you can see every race on ATR or RUK, let alone on Channel 4.
We're jolly lucky. We are lucky. But I just think if people, I mean, Zenyatta, I mean, people did, I mean, that Black Caviar was extraordinary, wasn't it? How much they loved her.
Well, the way the Australians, and her record, and how brave the Australians
Bring
were.
her over here, wasn't that brave of them?
It is. And of course, the Animal Kingdom.
I know.
Now, going for the Queen Anne, the first race at
With
Royal
Camelot.
Ascot.
I mean, that'll be brilliant, won't it?
Well, to go and
It's really exciting, that.
So, you're also talking about more focus on horses. Who would do this focusing, and what actually would it be doing as an appeal to people?
Well, I think you'd have sort of, as you have, trainers always interviewed, and people always watched you have for breakfast in the Racing Post. They could interview a horse or something. And they wouldn't be that silly. No, but what I mean is they could feature a horse and what sort of character he was every week. I'm sure you need more of that.
See, would you?
I know it sounds sentimental, but I just think it. I mean, the famous novels one reads, which have adorable horses, Moor and Mousey and Warrior and things like that. And people would like that.
At Longshot, for instance, they have ponies, about 20 ponies on the far side of the course, and the little kids must be on board a horse or a pony for the very first time, being led around. I'd love to see much more of that. Would you, as Queen for the Day, prepared to divert some of the income that BHA have to providing ponies on racecourses to bring? But then you've got the health and safety. If a youngster was killed or something like that, you can imagine what would happen. They do it in France. Could we do it over here?
Yes, of course we could. I'm fed up with health and safety. We'll probably be out of the common market in a minute, won't we?
Yeah. We can hope. That's all we can hope. Apparently it's going to be 2017.
Isn't it ridiculous? Sorry, that's off horses.
We certainly don't want to get onto that.
Yeah.
Racing as a public attraction, as the backdrop for some television shows, films, and your novels, you've used it and everything. It is a glorious sort of kaleidoscope of characters, both equine and human, that you can involve. How can we bring the racing family more to the forefront?
Well, nothing could be more beautiful. I mean, the colours and everything. I just think building up the personalities, but not just the trainer and the jockey. You know, I just think you've got to do the grooms, the trainers' wives, as I've said before, the what goes on in the stable, the owners, everybody. I just think you want a huge family to be introduced. And I think people, they want to go. I still think they want to go to the races to see their heroes. And the lovely thing about racing, unlike football and cricket, you can actually go down and see the horses in the paddock, which is heaven.
But Jilly, you go on about boosting up racing and the interviews and seeing the characters behind the scenes, and that's absolutely right. And yet, when a horse wins a race and the interviewer goes straight up to the jockey coming back, you object to it, a lot of other people do. Would you, as Queen for the Day, ban any jockey interviews before the horse, say, had weighed in?
No, I just think, I don't know, it's so difficult. Everything is completely gone. There's no truth. It's so difficult. No, I mean, I just think...
You must show leadership as your Queen.
No, I know I must, but I just think it's... I think that sort of... They need their times to think. I mean, couldn't they interview them in the winner's enclosure later, the jockeys?
Well, they could do it any time, but that's when you get the raw, immediate reaction. And it was
the microphone never goes. The horse is pushing off somewhere. You never hear what they say.
Well, you can, but it's unfiltered. You see, if you go back and you have time to think and maybe put your suit on or whatever it is, or come out after weighing in, you don't get the raw instant. That's what the television and I think the public like to hear what at the immediate impact of triumph what the jockey's got to say.
I suppose. I suppose they do. I suppose, poor jockey, I feel very sorry for them. And I could never, as I said, I never understand either French or Irish for them. You can't understand a word. Subtitles with the answer.
Mm-hmm. But is your trouble that you're too sympathetic to so many animals and humans that...
yeah, good commercial edge I don't have. Okay, I must get one. But I still think, I go on back to it again, I still think, the horse that people love is going to pull in the crowds.
Well, we agree with that.
Yeah.
We agree with that.
Yeah.
It'll be fascinating, as I say, with Animal Kingdom at Royal Ascot. Sprinter Sacra, when it runs for the first time next season.
Camelot
when he comes out as well. So, but we need the stars. But then racing's always needed the stars. All sports need the stars.
Yeah, they do.
And, for instance, Messi and the football, people will go around the world just to see Messi play.
They will.
And there were few enough players.
And the jockeys too. I mean, the jockeys, you see, if I got bigger jockeys, I mean, they weren't so sort of pale and things, people would be, because they'd be much more drawn to them. They could become sex symbols that people would run after, wouldn't they?
Well, Frankie Dettori would raise his hand as being.
And he's coming back,
those.
isn't he?
Fantastic, yeah, fantastic.
Frankie. That'll help.
Yeah.
Because Frankie's brilliant. Frankie's exactly example of what the sport needs, isn't he?
He is magnificent. He is the recognised face of racing.
Yes,
he is.
he is.
And the thing is about Frankie, he gives, doesn't he? You know, the old flying dismount. And owners are so proud that he is riding their horse, whether it's in a humble cellar or wherever it is, just to get Frankie on their horse.
Yeah.
He sells
Richard
racing.
Hughes is doing jolly well, isn't he?
Richard Hughes is fantastic, yeah. The jockeys are more communicative than they were.
Yeah, you're quite right. I was wrong about that.
But it's how, as Queen for the Day, you would make them more, not approachable, but better known to the public.
Yeah.
The horses as well. So the future of the game under your reign, you've got your tiara on.
I think I've absolutely screwed it up completely because...
No, but you've got plenty of points of view. You want no tiara racing until July. You want the whip virtually abolished for hitting horses, but just for straightening them, you go and keep them for that. You want the minimum weights of jockeys raised for about 5 or 7 pounds. Young racegoers are virtually getting the course free everywhere.
Yes.
Pensioners,
You
want to look after that. Stable staff, you want to look after that. You want to ban TV-mounted interviews with the jockeys. And you want to find out...
It depends. It's just the way... Some people do it quite well, but it's when this rich and... Also, all these awful people sitting there, sort of eating black ice lollies, the talking heads. It's so boring, isn't it?
Who eats the ice lollies?
Well, they all do. They line up these ice lollies, which they hand to. They look like ice lollies. There's microphones.
Oh, yes. Oh, I see what you mean.
Pontificating on and on and on and on and on about this and that. And I think that is quite boring.